There is a rather long piece, but a remarkably good piece, in the Daily Beast, which is typically a left-wing news outlet, but has a few pretty good writers. A few. And it's a piece by Asra Nomani. And she says she's a secular Muslim. And she also says Ben Carson had a point. Now, I hope Chuck Todd and George Stephanopoulos and all the other pretend reporters out there are paying attention. Because this is actually something I've been discussing at great length in defense of Ben Carson. And Andy McCarthy was on the program a couple days ago as well. And she says in part here, take it from someone who's been fighting it her whole adult life. The sad truth is that too many Muslims want to mix mosque and state. And this was precisely Carson's point. Ben Carson's blunt remarks about a Muslim president, and remember she's a leftist, but stick with me, triggered much outrage, even after he partially walked them back. But secular Muslims like me who reject political Islam, understood what he meant. He doesn't want a Muslim as president who doesn't believe in the strict secular separation of mosque and state, so that the laws of the state aren't at all touched by Sharia, or Sharia law derived from the Quran or the Hadith, the sayings and traditions of Prophet Muhammad. Neither do we. We really don't want a first lady or president in a burqa or face veil. Carson's comments underscore a political reality in which Muslim communities, not only in far-flung theocracies like Saudi Arabia and Iran, but also in America, still struggle with the existential questions about whether Islam is compatible with democracy and secularism. This struggle results in the very real phenomenon of creeping Sharia, as critics in the West call it, in which some Muslims like to mock as Islamophobic allegations. While the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment states the United States shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, the Quran states that Allah takes account of every single thing, which has led to the divine mandate by leading Muslim scholars to reject secularism, or the way of the world, derived from the Arabic root word of alam. In too many instances, we're seeing an erosion of those boundaries, in part led by some Muslims, increasingly using America's spirit of religious accommodation and cultural pluralism to challenge rules that most of the rest of America accepts. Remember I said yesterday that liberty is our greatest strength, but in many ways it's our greatest weakness in the sense that our enemies are able to use our liberty against our liberty. Many of those incursions have been led by the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, a controversial self-described advocacy group for Muslims that, not surprisingly, called for Carson to step down this week. And I've told you all about this fraudulent group. These pukes. For example, when I was a girl in New Jersey in the early 1970s, we took our Muslim holidays off if we wanted, but we didn't demand the rest of the school take the day off with us. But last week, 4 decades later, New Jersey Muslims stormed out of a Jersey City school board meeting after the school board refused to cancel school at the last minute for the Muslim holiday called Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice, being celebrated Thursday. The group CARE has lobbied public school officials for the change for the sake of diversity and inclusion. And at the meeting, the local NBC News segment showed an older woman yelling in Arabic that the holiday was her right, followed by a young Muslim woman wearing a headscarf and smiling eerily as she said, "We're no longer the minority. That's clear from tonight. We're going to be the majority soon." The thinly veiled threat was as disturbing to me as it might be to other Americans. Unspoken is the Sharia ruling that Muslims engage in no work or school on that holiday, but instead, as the Prophet Muhammad is quoted as saying in the Hadith, "O people of Islam, these are days of eating and drinking." Yet it is unreasonable and quite frankly selfish for Muslim parents to demand an unplanned holiday, forcing other parents to scramble to find childcare, as board members pointed out. But sadly, on the eve of the Festival of Sacrifice, there's one issue that too many Muslims find difficult to sacrifice. their belief that mosque and state must not be separated, but must in fact be intermingled. Let me stop there. The fact of the matter is, Ben Carson not only had the courage to point this out, he had the brilliance to point this out. And the fact that Chuck Todd is too stupid to understand what the man was saying, or that George Stephanopoulos is too much of a hack to understand what the man is saying, or even people on some of our favorite cable network weren't even willing to engage what the man was doing and saying is an outrage. I know exactly what he meant. And so did many of you.